for staying with us. Let's talk about some international stories that we're tracking this evening. Legal troubles for the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, don't seem to be ending anytime soon, because for a third time, the former U.S. president now, in fact, has been indicted, and this time around for his interference as far as the 2020 elections were concerned. We're now understanding the former president, in fact, has been indicted on 4 different counts. What is crucial to understand here is if there is a conviction, he could stand in prison for as much as 50 years. The larger question also is, how will this impact his presidential bid as far as 2024 is concerned? Let's take all those questions to our colleague from CNN, Caitlin Polaz, who in fact is now joining us. Caitlin, appreciate you taking out the time and joining us this evening. As I pointed out, legal troubles for the former U.S. president only increasing. This time around, we're seeing a third indictment for him. Could you talk to us about the counts on which this indictment has come? If I understand this correctly, I believe there are 4 different counts.
Right. So this indictment, it covers a very large amount of activity after the 2020 election by Donald Trump. It's alleging essentially a set of conspiracies, 3 different conspiracies that the Justice Department believes were crimes. They're going to go to trial on that very likely. Donald Trump is likely to appear in court in person tomorrow in Washington, D.C. and plead not guilty. But the crimes that he is accused of in this particular set of charges are conspiracy to defraud the United States government, conspiracy to obstruct the congressional proceedings on January 6th, so the Electoral College vote, and then conspiracy to deprive people of rights, deprive people of their right to vote, essentially a voter disenfranchisement charge. And so those pieces, the reason that he is accused of those is because Donald Trump is accused of taking steps to use his authority and also to use others around him, a set of conspirators who are not charged in this case, but have been identified by the Justice Department as a set of lawyers and others working with him who wanted to spread disinformation and then put pressure on the Justice Department, on the court system, on state legislatures, and also to use electors in states as a way to undermine what the vote result was. And they outlined state by state how this went down, phone calls Trump and others were making to people individually, and the exact discussions that were happening behind the scenes where Donald Trump and his conspirators were saying that there was fraud, and the people that were very close advisors to him, his formal campaign entity, were saying the opposite. There was not fraud that they could see, and that what he was doing was wrong. He needed to stand down.
Caitlin, I also want to understand, if I understand this correctly again, as part of the indictment, there are about 6 unidentified people who they believe helped the former president as far as trying to overturn the electoral process in the bid is concerned. Do we have any idea who these people are?
We do, in fact. So there are 6 listed in the charges. They are not named and they are not charged with any crime at this time, although the special counsel's office has already made clear that they are still looking at other individuals, their actions. The investigation may be ongoing here. However, these 6 people, we've identified 5 of them. They are some of the bold-faced names that you would recognize from after the 2020 election, people who have become quite famous in the United States for their affiliations with Donald Trump and for their work on his behalf after the election. People like his top advisor, Rudy Giuliani, who became so well known as the mayor of New York City during September 11th many years ago, now has become a person that was closely aligned with Trump after the election, spreading disinformation, trying to take court cases through the system. And also a woman named Sidney Powell, another lawyer who has represented people in Donald Trump's circles before. She also was out there quite publicly after the election, spreading disinformation, wanting to challenge the result of the election. There are some others named, a Justice Department official named Jeffrey Clark, another lawyer named John Eastman, an additional lawyer named Ken Cheesebro, and then there is a 6th person, a political consultant whom we have not named, and the Justice Department also doesn't name. But all of these people are alleged to have been working together with Trump to spread the disinformation at a time that was quite separate and apart from what his campaign, what the Republican Party and others around Donald Trump, even in his White House, wanted to do.
True. Caitlin, I also want to understand, if convicted, what is the former president looking at?
That is a great question. I mean, much will depend on whether Donald Trump wins the presidency and wins the Republican nomination for the presidency in 2024. If he does win the presidency again, he becomes a person with an inordinate amount of power, specifically over what the Justice Department does. The Justice Department is bringing this case against him at this time. He also would have pardon authority as the president, and this is a case in federal court, so he very well could explore the idea of pardoning himself or dismissing the charges against him if he were to become president again. However, if he does not, right, if he doesn't win the nomination, doesn't win the presidency, he did lose in 2020 pretty sizably in the states that were battleground states throughout the country. Donald Trump very likely could be convicted. He also could be acquitted by a jury. It's very unpredictable what a jury would do. They would look at the case, they would spend some time with it. They would be asked to take it quite seriously, to look at the evidence, look at the facts, and determine that there may be proof beyond a reasonable doubt, that they are unanimous in believing that he should either be convicted or acquitted. So that is how that trial process would play out. If he were to be convicted, he could be looking at several years in jail. These are quite hefty charges that have maximum sentences of decades in prison.
Caitlin, lastly, before we let you go, I just want to understand, till now, the former president has been pretty unfazed as far as his legal troubles are concerned. How do you see this impacting the 2024 presidential bid?
Well, it already is something that the candidates in the Republican Party who are running against Donald Trump are coming out and saying quite publicly that this should be taken quite seriously, that it should be assessed. And there has been a lot of political grappling with January 6th, with what the rioters did. Donald Trump has really coddled them since he left the presidency in a lot of ways. But ultimately, it is up to voters, and we will not know exactly how voters are reacting to this many months until now, when people start going to the polls, people start caucusing to determine the Republican nominee. And in this situation, there is a long road ahead in court. A lot of things could happen. There could be additional charges, and the investigation could result in us learning much more about what happened on January 6th.
True, Caitlin.